Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Planning Commission special meeting. Mr. Singer, let's get going.
Good afternoon. This is a City Planning Commission special meeting held in New York City Planning Commission hearing room, Lower Concourse, 120 Broadway. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Burney.
Here.
Commissioner Capelli.
Here.
Commissioner Cirillo. Commissioner De La Uz.
Here.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Edie.
Here.
Commissioner Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Commissioner Rampashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. Let's turn to page 1 in the calendar. Borough of Manhattan, calendar numbers 1 through 4. CD 10, calendar number 1, C190434, ZMM. Calendar number 2, N190433, ZRM. Calendar number 3, C190435, ZSM. And calendar number 4, C190436, ZSM. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments and for the grant of special permits concerning La Hermosa, for favorable reports on calendar numbers 1, 2, and 4, and for favorable report as modified on calendar number 3, Chair Lago.
Yes.
Chairman Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Burney.
Yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Cirillo.
President and yes.
Commissioner De La Uz.
Yes.
Commissioner Edie.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Abstain.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Commissioner Rampashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 1, 2, and 4, and a favorable report as modified has been adopted on calendar number 3.
And Mr. Singer, any other business before the commission?
There is not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so this meeting is adjourned.
Good afternoon. This is a City Planning Commission review session for Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. The time is 1:03 p.m. and a quorum is present. The first item on the agenda is a certification of a UDAP designation and disposition of city-owned property in Brooklyn Community District 3. Our presenter is Karina Ling.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application by the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development for a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition for 13 vacant city-owned lots to facilitate the construction of 7 residential buildings and with approximately 78 units of affordable home ownership housing.
Can you turn your microphone down?
Sure. Is this better? The proposed developments are located in 3 clusters in the southern part of the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood in Community District 3 in Brooklyn. So broadly speaking, the project sites are in a mid-density residential neighborhood. They're all located between Fulton Street, which is a commercial corridor, and Atlantic Avenue, which is a main thoroughfare with elevated rail and auto-oriented uses. Significant institutions in the area include Interfaith Medical Center, just east of Cluster 1, and Boys and Girls High School, closer to the second cluster. All of the sites are well served by transit. As you can see on the map, they're all near subway stops, and they're also each near 2 bus routes. So now we'll take a closer look at each of the clusters. Here, we're looking at the westernmost cluster, which includes sites 1 and 2, located on Herkimer, just west of Albany Avenue. East of the sites is Interfaith Medical Center. Much of the area around these sites, as well as the other sites in the application, was contextually rezoned in 2007 to the current zoning. Blocks along Fulton Street are generally zoned R7D with a C24 overlay, and the south side of Atlantic is largely zoned M11. The rest of the area is mapped with medium density residential and medium density contextual and non-contextual residential districts. Sites 1 and 2 are in an R6A district, which allows up to 3 FAR for residential use and results in buildings with a street wall of 40 to 60 feet high and an overall building height of 70 feet. Sites 1 and 2 front on Herkimer Street, which is largely residential with 2 to 4 story row houses and walk-ups and several 6-story apartment buildings. Fulton Street and the cross streets are more mixed with everything from 1-story retail to 10-story apartment buildings. And then towards the south, near Atlantic, there are 1-story warehouse buildings. So sites 1 and 2, seen here, are each comprised of 2 interior lots with 40 feet of frontage on Herkimer and a lot area of 4,000 square feet. The developments on these sites will be the same and built pursuant to R6A zoning. They'll be 52-foot tall, 5-story buildings with approximately 11,400 square feet and contain 10 units each. These will be 100% affordable buildings with a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom homeownership units. All of the other developments in this application will also be affordable homeownership buildings with 1- and 2-bedroom units as well. Similarly, every building will also have an elevator and a landscaped yard that is accessible to all residents. And each unit will have its own washer and dryer. So moving on to the next cluster, this is about a half-mile east of the last one and includes 3 development sites. The land uses here are generally the same, except the area also has a number of vacant lots. And instead of a hospital, the institutional uses here include a nursing home and several houses of worship. The zoning here is also largely the same as in the previous cluster, though there's a small area along Atlantic that is zoned C43. The sites in this cluster are all within an R6B zoning district, which allows 2 FAR for residential use and results in buildings with a street wall of up to 40 feet high and a maximum height of 50 feet. Sites 3, 4, and 5 are all located just south of Herkimer Street on Rochester and Sidham Place. Most of the surrounding buildings are 2 to 4-story row houses and apartment buildings, but there are a couple 7-story buildings in the area. So we're looking here at development site 3, which is located on the east side of Rochester Avenue, just south of Herkimer. It's comprised of 2 tax lots, has 42 feet of frontage, and an area of approximately 4,100 square feet. The proposed development will contain 8 units and a 40-foot tall 4-story building that will total about 7,500 square feet. The next site, number 4, is located on the same tax block but fronts on Sidham Place, 1 street east of Rochester. The site is made up of 3 tax lots with 63 feet of frontage and has about 6,100 square feet. The proposed development on Site 4 will contain 15 units and a 40-foot tall 4-story building with about 11,700 square feet. A zoning override was obtained for this development to waive the 8 parking spaces that would be required by zoning. Now, across the street and to the north is Site 5, which is an irregular corner lot with 52 feet of frontage on Herkimer Street and 105 feet along Sidham Place. The site area has a lot area of just over 6,000 square feet. The development for the site will also be a 40-foot tall 4-story building with approximately 10,700 square feet, and it will have 12 units. A zoning override was also obtained for this property, or for this development, to waive the 6 parking spaces that would be required by zoning. So the last cluster includes 2 development sites and is located about 1/4 mile east of the previous one. The land uses here are similar to the previous cluster as well. And in terms of zoning, this area has an MX10 special district with an M11 and R70 districts mapped along Atlantic. And then there's also an inclusionary housing designated area that is coterminous with this special district. You can see towards the east that a portion of what was the MX10 Special District was recently rezoned earlier this year to R8A with a C24 overlay, and that was also for a UDAP project. The rest of the area generally has the same zoning as the other clusters. And here, the development site 6 is in an R6B district, so it's subject to the same bulk regulations as sites 3, 4, and 5 that we just looked at. Site 7 is within the MX10 Special District and is subject to the base bulk regulations of R7D districts. This allows for 4.2 residential FAR and 10-story buildings with an 85-foot base height and a 100-foot maximum building height. So sites 6 and 7 are both interior lots that front on Ralph, just south of Herkimer Street. The area has a mix of built forms with 2 to 3-story row houses, 1-story retail with large surface parking lots, and some 1-story industrial buildings. The taller building that you see in the upper right is a school and social services site. So looking closer at site 6, this is made up of 2 lots with 50 feet of frontage and approximately 4,500 square feet of lot area. The development that's proposed for the site is subject to the R6B zoning regulations and will be a 5-story building that's 49 feet 6 inches tall with 10 units and approximately 8,600 square feet. The last site, which is on the same block and has 34 feet of frontage and an area of approximately 3,000 square feet. So this development will be built pursuant to the basic non-inclusionary housing regulations for R7D zoning. The development will be a 7-story building that will have a base height of 62 feet and a total height of 72 feet. It will contain 13 units and have approximately 12,200 square feet. So just to summarize, this application is for a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of 13 city-owned lots to facilitate 7 developments with approximately 78 units of affordable homeownership housing. I'll now take any questions.
Questions from the commission? Vice Chair Nichols.
Thank you. These would be condominium units as a home ownership, or has that been determined yet?
I can have the applicant speak to that.
Okay, and affordability levels, you mentioned 100% affordable. What does that mean in terms of AMI?
So these developments are all being built under the NIHOP program, which has an AMI range of between 80 to 130% AMI.
And do you know the AMI of the local AMI?
Of the area?
Of
Yeah.
the area, yeah.
The Bed-Stuy, the median household income of Bed-Stuy is $43,000.
Commissioner Burney.
Could you just go back to the Herkimer Street, the renderings of the Herkimer Street? Just because I saw that first.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine. So, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I just have a lot of concerns about the planting in front of these buildings, because we have a very poor track record of these things surviving. They're never well maintained, and they just become a nuisance. And I'm all for planting some trees on the sidewalk, and I understand they're probably concerned about screening the residential units that are there, but these planters are just not really a good solution.
I can definitely take that concern to the applicant.
Other questions? Commissioner Levin.
Is there a developer or developers chosen yet?
Yeah, the development team is a partnership between Job Development Corporation, Fulcrum Properties, and the Briarwood organization.
Okay.
And is there a possibility that sites 6 and 7 get combined? Is there a vacant space in between the two of them?
That lot is
Yes.
part of a lot that extends to the other side of the block. I can definitely,
Call it up on the screen.
sure.
Yeah. Oh. Well, that kind of shows it, yes.
Yeah, so that lot is part of a lot that extends to the other side behind development site 6 that's currently used for parking of like large trucks.
Okay.
But
So
I can,
it may have some potential, or maybe it doesn't. It's not city-owned in any event.
no.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Villalobos.
Can you go to site 6 and 7 for a sec?
The area map or,
The actual, no, not the rendering, the area map that kind of shows the little piece of, next one over, I think.
this one?
I guess it's actually 3, 4, and 5, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go, that one. So the little piece of land that's going into the adjacent yard, I'm assuming that there's actually not going to be development on that, and instead the little bit of FAR is going to be transferred. Is that what's happening? For site 5?
Yeah.
816 Herkimer?
Yeah. So that little
Yeah,
piece of land
extension, yeah.
on the south, that's part of the yard. The development is located more on the northern part of the site.
I guess the question is it going to actually be used or not? So if that, when it comes back, if that question can be answered.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, the application is certified.
The second item on the agenda, page 60, is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 2. Our presenter is Kevin Kraft.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private application by 90 Sand Street Housing Development Fund Corporation, an entity controlled by Breaking Ground, a nonprofit provider of supportive and affordable housing, requesting a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate the conversion of an existing 29-story former hotel to supportive and affordable housing classified as a community facility use. The proposed project area is located within the Dumbo neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 2. The site is located between the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges, just north of downtown Brooklyn. The proposed rezoning area is an approximately 42,000 square foot single block that consists of 2 tax lots, Block 87, lots 5 and 9. Lots 5 and 9 are under separate ownership and comprise a single zoning lot that has an allowable FAR of 11.08. The block is bounded by the 160-foot wide Sand Street to the north, J Street to the east, High Street to the south, and Pearl Street to the west. The applicant-owned site, Lot 9, is an approximately 21,000 square foot lot that is currently occupied by the 90 Sand Street building, a vacant 29-story, approximately 329-foot tall building that was built in 1993 by Watchtower, an organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses. The building was formerly used as a hotel to house Watchtower members. There is a total of 508 units, as well as a commercial kitchen, all of which are vacant. There is also an existing 7,600 square foot public plaza on the eastern portion of the lot along J Street. The provision of the plaza permitted a 1.08 FAR bonus to the zoning lot. Lastly, in 2018, the applicant and HPD have recorded 2 regulatory agreements against Lot 9, requiring that the existing building be rehabilitated and used for supportive and affordable housing. Lot 5, the non-applicant-owned site, is an approximately 21,000 square foot lot with frontage on Sands, Pearl, and High Streets. This lot is developed with an 8-story commercial loft building that was renovated into a Class A office building in 2017 and is part of the larger Dumbo Heights office complex to the north and is connected by an existing sky bridge across Sand Street. This lot is not expected to redevelop due to the proposed zoning change. The surrounding area contains a mix of uses, including medium and high-density residential, commercial, and community facilities. Commercial office uses are concentrated north of the project area, primarily located in medium to large loft buildings. Dumbo Heights, a 5-building, 1.2 million square foot campus comprised of office, retail, and high-tech space, and home to companies such as Etsy, is located within the project area and north of the project area across Sand Street. Immediately to the south, across High Street, is the New York City of Technology CUNY Voorhees Hall, an 8-story academic building. To the west is the 3-story academic building that houses CUNY's Environmental Center. Beyond Adam Street is the New York City Emergency Management Department offices, and further to the southwest is the U.S. District Court. To the south is Concord Village, a roughly 1,000-unit condo complex of 7 15-story towers surrounded by parking lots. Southwest of the project area is 203 J Street, a 33-story residential building with a hotel in the base constructed in 2015. Open spaces in the area include Trinity Park. Directly across J Street from the project area is Manhattan Bridge Small Park. Approximately 4 blocks to the southwest is roughly 3-acre Walt Whitman Park. And further west is Cadman Plaza Park, a 10.3-acre park. The area has access to the F train at the York Street Station 3 blocks to the north, as well as the AC trains at the High Street Station, which is less than a block to the west. The area is also served by the B67 and B69 bus lines. This is a view looking at the south side of Sand Street at the project area. On the left-hand side, you have the development site, and on the right-hand side, you have the office building that's located on Lot 5. And you can see the bridge crossing over crossing over Sand Street. This is looking on the north side of Sand Street at the larger Dumbo Heights complex to the north. This is looking at the west side of J Street at the existing plaza that's currently gated, but is the applicant's intention to open it up for public use, and they'll be coming forward with a chairperson certification in the future. They're currently still working on the design of that space. This is looking at the east side of J Street at Manhattan Bridge Small Park, as well as the pedestrian entrance to the pedestrian pathway on the bridge. Looking west on High Street with the CUNY Voorhees Hall on the left-hand side and the project area on the right-hand side. And lastly, looking south on Pearl Street, you have the office building on Lot 5 on the left-hand side and CUNY's environmental building on the right-hand side and downtown Brooklyn further in the distance. The project area and immediate blocks to the north are located within an M16 zoning district. M16 districts allow a variety of commercial and light manufacturing uses, as well as heavier industrial uses subject to stringent performance standards. Building heights are regulated by a sky exposure plane that begins at 85 feet above the street line. Further to the north, beyond the elevated Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, is the MX2 Special Mixed-Use District in Dumbo. This was established in 1999 as Brooklyn's first special mixed-use district. Non-contextual residential R71 and R72 districts are located to the south and west of the project area. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing 90 Sand Street building on Lot 9 to a community facility use to accommodate 508 units of supportive and affordable housing for low and moderate income tenants. The proposed project would include 305 units, 60% for supportive housing for the formerly homeless, and 202 units affordable to low and moderate income households with incomes ranging from 30% AMI to 100% AMI. The lower floors would be renovated to create tenant amenities and office space for the building management and social services. This would include a reception desk with security staff on site 24/7, along with a community room for use by building residents. Other amenities would include a laundry room, fitness room, and computer lab. In addition, the applicants intend to lease the lower cellar level to a tenant that would provide a community facility, commercial or light industrial use, but that tenant has yet been identified. The Center for Urban Community Services would provide on-site social services to residents of the building, including case management, primary medical care, mental health services, employment readiness guidance, and benefits counseling. And as I mentioned, the applicants will be seeking a chairperson certification to update the public plaza. In order to facilitate the proposed project, the applicant is seeking the following actions. First, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from M16 to an M16 R10 district within a special mixed-use district. The proposed mixed-use district would expand the range of permitted uses and would allow the existing 90 Sand Street building to be occupied by a use group 3A, community facility nonprofit institution with sleeping accommodations, which is not currently allowed in the M16 district. The proposed mixed-use district would maintain the existing permitted base FAR of 10 or up to 12 for including a public plaza or arcade. Any residential use would be required to include MIH affordable units at 12 FAR. And lastly, the applicants are proposing a zoning text amendment to Appendix F of the zoning resolution to create a mandatory inclusionary housing area coterminous with the proposed rezoning area. The applicants are proposing to map both MIH option 1 and 2. However, it should be noted the applicant's proposal is not subject to MIH because they are classified as a community facility use. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner De La Hoz.
First, I think this is a great use for this building, considering the need that exists for supportive housing and affordable housing. And what the past use was, I'm hoping that means the cost per square foot isn't that big a deal. I'm just wondering, I heard what you said at the last piece about since this property, this project won't be subject to MIH. I'm just wondering then why we're thinking of mapping 1 and 2 in the event that the adjacent property in some future were to be redeveloped. It seems to me that the greatest need would continue to be for the more deeply affordable option rather than 2, especially given this community board. So that's the one thing I would ask HPD and the applicant to consider as it moves forward.
Do you want to give some history of the site?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The Lot 5 office building, as I mentioned, was redeveloped in 2017 as Class A office space, so it's highly unlikely. So mapping both options now just allowed a little bit more flexibility should a future residential use want to come in the future. But we could
No,
definitely
the
relay it to
prior
HPD.
use of the current building.
Hotel,
Okay.
I'm very well aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted everyone to be aware that it's very well configured because of its prior use.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
I think you had it listed, but could you just reiterate a bit on what the level of social services, support services would be in the building for the prospective tenants?
Definitely. So Center for Urban Community Services, who also partners with Breaking Ground on other projects throughout the city, they'll be providing services such as case management, primary medical care, mental health services, employment readiness guidance, and benefits counseling. There may also be a few more that I would defer to the applicant to respond to, but speaking high level.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marin.
Kevin, good afternoon. A couple of questions. So knowing that this was used as a hotel prior, are there going to be any changes to the units to accommodate? I guess my first question should be, what's the population that's going to be in here? Are there singles? Are there families with children?
That's a great question. The applicants have responded that they do not intend to reconfigure the units. Right now, there's 305 studio units and 202 one-bedroom units, which would make us to believe that it's more for single family occupancy.
If we could have some more information on that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burney.
Kevin, when will we see the design for the plaza, the proposed plaza?
The applicants are currently working with the Brooklyn office on the design, so we're expecting a couple more months.
Okay, thanks.
And this is a real opportunity because since the building has been unoccupied, the plaza is closed off, so this will become quite an amenity. Other questions? Okay, the application is certified.
The third item on the agenda, page 83, is a certification of a zoning map amendment in Brooklyn Community District 10. Our presenter is San Martinak.
Afternoon, Commissioners. This is a private application by Stars and Stripes Company for zoning map amendment to facilitate the legalization of a non-conforming use. The development site is located at 8118 13th Avenue in Dyker Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn's Community District 10. A bit of a background, the project area is within the Dyker Heights Fort Hamilton rezoning, which was approved in 2007 and was undertaken to preserve the neighborhood's existing scale and character. The development site also received a BSA variance in 1955 for a bulk, and I'm going to read from the BSA application the subject line. The application, June 16, 1955, under section 21 of the zoning resolution, to permit in a local retail D1 area district the erection of a building using more than the area permitted. So just clarifying, the BSA variance was not for use. The use was permitted at the time. This is pre-1961, and the certificate of occupancy lists it as a club. And so the variance was for the bulk. At the time, the maximum permitted area was 55%, and the development site, the existing building, uses close to 72%. So the project area is comprised of 3 lots, approximately 10,000 square feet. The development site is marked in red and has a 40 feet frontage along 13th Avenue and 100 feet deep, comprising 4,000 square feet. The surrounding land uses are mostly residential, 2 to 3 stories, and comprise single-family homes, detached 2 to 3-storied single-family homes, and 3-storied row houses. The community facilities in the area include a junior high school 201 just a block to the northwest. Just south of the project area is the Diker Heights Library, and diagonally across is a house of worship. And just a couple of blocks down is the post office, and 4 blocks south is the 214-acre Diker Heights Park, which contains a number of recreational facilities, sports fields, and also a golf course. The existing zoning is R5B, which is primarily a 3-story contextual residential district, which permits detached and semi-detached row houses and permits a maximum of 1.35 FAR and a maximum building height of 33 feet. So this shows a bird's eye view, which shows the variety of the residential uses. Also, the project area and the development site located along 13th Avenue between 81st Street and 82nd Street. Something to note is in 2015, City Council renamed the corner of the 82nd Street and 13th Avenue as Frank J. Santo Way, after the applicant's father, who worked in this building, which is existing on the development site. So this shows further the character of the 13th Avenue, which is a very nice street thoroughfare. It's a wide street. It's local retail made of restaurants, salons, medical offices. And the applicant states that the existing use, which is a law office, would be in context and consistent with the rest of the character of the uses along 13th Avenue. So the picture on the top left, the building, the 1-story building in the middle is the existing building, the development site, which is 4,000 square feet lot area, a 1-story building with a cellar, a floor area of approximately 2,875 feet. No new construction is proposed, and currently it is used as a law office, which is a non-conforming use under the existing R5B zoning. And in order to facilitate the legalization of this law office, the applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment to allow for mapping a C13 commercial overlay over the existing R5B district. The proposed zoning would not increase the maximum permitted commercial FAR or the maximum permitted FAR for this site, or change the bulk residential regulations as they currently exist. So in closing, the applicant is seeking the proposed rezoning to facilitate the continued use of a productive law office which serves this community. Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, thank you, Sanmani. I'm just curious, why now? What?
So the applicant's father passed away in 2013. And sometime after, the applicant's mother was going through the paper records and found out the CFO and found out that the law office, which was at the time allowed, is no longer conforming. They just wanted to straighten out their affairs.
Okay. And then probably the bigger question is, if you look up and down that whole block, is why this block doesn't have the commercial.
Yeah. So it's because this is the only commercial use in the block.
Right.
And so at that time, must have been left out.
Yeah, okay. Good, thank you.
Usually we have concerns when we see an application after the fact. This one actually brings a smile to your face of the widow wanting to do the right thing. Other questions? Okay, the application is certified.
Thank you.
The fourth item on the agenda, page 96, is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 2. Our presenter is Scott Solomon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Woodside Equities LLC seeks a approval of a zoning map amendment for the entirety or portions of 11 tax lots from an R5B to R7A C23 district to facilitate development of an 8-story mixed-use building in the Woodside neighborhood of Queens Community District 2. Zoning text amendment is proposed to designate the area as a mandatory inclusionary housing area. Brief background, the project area located on the eastern side of 52nd Street between Queens Boulevard and Roosevelt Avenue was rezoned from R6 to R5B in 1992 as a result of the city-sponsored Woodside rezoning. In 2006, the Masbeth Woodside rezoning changed the M11 district west of the project area to R6 C23 and the C81 along Queens Boulevard to R7X with the C23 overlay. It also established the borough's first inclusionary housing designated area along the R7X corridor along Queens Boulevard. The project area was not affected. Followed in 2011, the Sunnyside Woodside rezoning added density with contextual components to the areas north and west of the project area. Again, project area not affected. The surrounding area is characterized by a mix of use groups and densities. In the R5 district, including the area east of the project area, the dominant typology is of low-rise 2- to 4-story residential buildings. Following 2006 rezoning, there are several 7- to 9-story mixed-use buildings located within the R7X district, mapped along Queens Boulevard. Within the R6 C23 district, mapped to the west and north of the project area, there are several commercial buildings with second-floor residential. And as of right, 6-story mixed-use building will be replacing an industrial building located across the street from the project area. There are several mixed-use buildings planned or under construction currently within the R6 district along Roosevelt Avenue. 4 to 5-story residential and mixed-use buildings are located along Roosevelt Avenue. Ground floor retail uses are located along Queens Boulevard, Roosevelt Avenue, and south of Queens Boulevard is the 106-acre New Calvary Cemetery. The project area is well served by public transit. Is located just south of the 7 line 52nd Street subway station, and several local and express bus routes serve Queens Boulevard and Roosevelt Avenue. The project area consists of approximately 33,000 square feet across all portions of 11 tax lots. The development site owned by the applicant occupies lots 12, 15, 16, and 17, totaling approximately 15,000 square feet. Lot 12 is occupied by a warehouse that has been vacant since 1996. At that time, the applicant, who owns a baby clothing and accessories company, moved their warehouse to Jamaica. Since 1996, it's remained vacant. The 2 lots south of the development site, lots 10 and 7, are occupied by a 2-story house of worship and a non-conforming auto repair shop. The southernmost lot, Lot 1, is only partially within the project area and is used for access and egress for parking and loading in the rear of the 9-story residential building, mixed-use building, fronting Queens Boulevard. Zoning compliance will not be affected. North of the development site on Lot 19 is a 3-story multi-family residential building built in 2005. And the northernmost end of the project area includes approximately 1,200 square feet of the rear portions of the properties facing Roosevelt Avenue. You see existing photos here, photo on top left with the warehouse and vacant lots within the development site. Photo 2, the 3-story residential building to the north of the project area, of the development site, Photo 3, you see the house of worship to the right of the existing vacant warehouse with the auto repair shop next to that. 2 mixed-use buildings fronting Queens Boulevard within the existing R7X district. Looking straight in on those 2 properties into 52nd Street from Queens Boulevard. The same properties looking west, you'll see a 9-story residential building that was, as of Friday, being constructed. Photo 7, across the street, the currently vacant industrial building under construction, 6-story mixed-use building. Photo 8, looking north to west towards the entrance of the 52nd Street station. Another property demolished, planned for a 6-story residential building. In terms of the proposed development, the proposed actions would facilitate an 8-story mixed-use building, approximately 63,000 residential square feet across 61 dwelling units, and a 5,300 square foot ground floor retail space. approximately 15 to 18 units would be pursuant MIH. No specific commercial tenant has been identified yet. 49 parking spaces are provided, however, fewer are required. The site is within a transit zone, which requires no off-street parking spaces for the income-restricted units. 50% of all other units are required to provide parking, and one space for every 400 commercial square feet. Parking access and egress would be through a new curb cut on the left, located in the northern end of the building. Parking is located in both the rear and cellar. Here you see then the curb cut on the left, with the parking located in the rear yard of the building. The rest of the parking space is located in the cellar. Elevations indicating the proposed building would having a maximum base height of 60 feet, 65 would be allowed, and then topping out at a maximum permitted building height of 80 feet. As proposed, it would utilize the maximum FAR of 4.6. The applicant is requesting to rezone the project area from R5B to R7A and expanding the C23 overlay from the north, south, and west onto the development site, onto the entire project area. The rationale for the R7A is to provide additional housing capacity and to serve as an appropriate step down from the higher R7X district to the south towards the R6 district along Roosevelt Avenue to the north. The rezoning will increase the FAR, the residential FAR, from 1.35 in the R5B district to 4.6 in the R7A when mapped with MIH. The R7X district to the south allows a basic FAR of 5, 6 with MIH. The C23 overlay will allow commercial FAR of 2.0. The higher density is also proposed due to proximity to several public transit options and major arterials in the area. The density that would be allowed would serve to connect the major thoroughfares of Queens Boulevard and Roosevelt Avenue, also allowing for a retail continuity between the two major streets. Applicants proposing mapping both MIH options 1 and 2 for additional flexibility, option 2, which would be requiring 30% at 80% AMI is preferred. In conclusion, approval application will facilitate approximately 61 dwelling units, 15 to 18, subject to MIH, and allow for additional commercial uses. Thank you.
Questions from the commission? Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. I wanted to understand a little bit more about the justification for the commercial overlay. I noticed that the buildings that are pictured on Queens Boulevard, the ground floor is vacant, and that immediately across the street, it was unclear what was happening immediately across the street, but that's
Sure.
Church space.
So the photos Queens Boulevard, I was just there Friday. The particular photo on the right is not updated, but there is a physical cultural establishment on the building on the right. The building on the left has a sort of construction construction accessories shop for contractors, both occupied, and the house of worship still occupied by congregation.
I guess I just question a mid-block commercial overlay when we have very strong retail corridors established along Queens Boulevard and Roosevelt.
I think they're hoping this would complement those existing retail resources. They want to connect Queens Boulevard to Roosevelt Avenue. Across the street in the project area is already mapped C23. So there's existing, proposed 6-story buildings under construction that would have retail on the first floor. It would complement it across the street. The access to the public transit is seen to sort of connect to Queens Boulevard.
I would like to understand a little bit more then about what is happening on those streets and the strength of the retail environment on those streets, because to map more commercial on a mid-block, I'm not quite sure I understand the land use rationale yet.
Other questions? Commissioner De La Hoz.
When this comes back, if they could talk about similarly their rationale for mapping both options 1 and 2. Given what the needs are in the local community.
Okay.
Commissioner Rumpershad.
I was just curious. I noticed that they have the handicap parking down in the cellar, but the parking at the rear is for retail. Would they be providing handicap parking there?
I mean, they'd be subject to the ADA requirements for illustrative purposes. So if it is required, they would provide as per the rules.
Okay. I'm just curious why they wouldn't show it now, since it says parking for retail at the rear. I would, assume they would show it. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Burney.
Is the architect coming to the public meeting?
I could check. I don't believe so, but I will double check with them.
Could we ask them to come?
I'll have them ask them. Sure.
Good, thanks.
Other questions? Okay, the application is certified.
Thank you.
Item 5 on the agenda is a non-ULIP referral of a general project plan approval in Manhattan Community District 10. Our presenter is Annie White.
Madam Chair, I'd like to be recused in this matter.
Great.
Great. Good afternoon, commissioners. So Empire State Development, ESD, is seeking a general project plan, or GPP, which was last modified in July of this year to override certain zoning provisions for a proposed mixed-use development in Central Harlem. The project site is 121 West 125th Street, which is in the special 125th Street district in Manhattan Community Board 10. So this is coming to the commission as ESD is seeking a response letter from city planning regarding these zoning overrides for their GPP. The applicant team with ESD is also working in a partnership with the National Urban League, BRP, Taconic, and L&M. So here is the site and context. As you can see, it fronts along West 125th Street, just west of Lenox and Malcolm X Boulevard, excuse me. It is in a very transit-rich area of Central Harlem, including being almost directly adjacent to the 2-3 subway stop at 125th Street. For some on-the-ground context, this is the site here, the two-story kind of retail space looking west along 125th Street. And there from the other angle, looking east down 125th Street, the property just east of the brick property just east of what the H&M is. And it's a two-story retail with surface parking above, which you could see from the aerial. So the proposed project is approximately 410,000 square foot building that's proposed to be 17 stories or 205 feet tall, and would contain a large mix of uses, including a new headquarters for the National Urban League to return to their home in Harlem where they were founded over a century ago, a conference center which will be operated by the National Urban League, a civil rights museum also operated by the National Urban League, which will be focusing on civil rights history, specifically civil rights history in the North. Office space to be privately leased for specific organizations, some defined such as Jazzmobile and 100 Black Men, and some left to be Class A spec office space. 170 units of affordable housing, approximately 50 of which will be supportive housing units, and a two-story retail base. So to facilitate this development on the site, ESD is seeking the following zoning overrides through their GPP. The first related to bulk, they're asking for a base height to extend 10 feet beyond the permitted 85 feet to reach 95 feet along the West 125th Street wall, and also an override to increase by 10 feet to 205. Additionally, they're seeking an increase in FAR to allow 8.52 FAR. They are additionally seeking an override for the recess provisions in the zoning to allow a slightly larger recess along that facade to allow for a more enhanced entrance for the National Urban League variety of uses. This can kind of be seen better with this elevation rendering where you see the kind of pronounced entrance to have the National Urban League stand out amongst the other tenants. Additionally, they are seeking some waivers to the signage provisions, including increasing the permitted aggregate signage floor area to 3,000 square feet. Additionally, to allow signage to rise to a height of 63 feet along the facade, and to allow the National Urban League sign, a blade sign, to project 5 feet beyond the building facade. This is the best rendering we had to show that blade sign, which you can see here. So in conclusion, city planning staff believes the requested bulk and signage overrides are reasonable for the wide mix of uses proposed, and the resulting building will be appropriate for the surrounding context and the intention of the special 125th Street district. The signage is very similar to what the Studio Museum at 429 West 127th Street received. However, in our proposed letter, which I believe you all received in the CPC package, we have added conditions that would restrict signage to the proposed height to ensure they are not seeking any rooftop signage, and also to ensure the signage will not be further illuminated or animated beyond what has been shown in our illustrative renderings. Overall, we believe the project will be an asset to the community and would like the commission to vote by assent on the support letter that was included in your package. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Marin.
Annie, so I understand the mix of uses and it's appreciated. What I don't see here is a prominent entrance for the residential. So we have an entrance that says National Urban League, but I don't read where the residents enter.
Yeah, I believe the floor plan that was sent is quite small, but I believe this might be the residential entrance. I can confirm with them. I'm not 100% sure where that is.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Hi. You spoke to some restrictions that you'd like to apply to the signage. Could you give us some background on the rationale?
Sure. This is really just clarifying the conversations that we've had with the ESD. So they believe that their proposal will not be seeking the things that we're restricting, which is signage above 63 feet, which is a proposed such as building top signage. We just wanted to solidify that in the letter to ensure that they wouldn't be seeking the tower top signage. And additionally, just they have shown some retail, the typical illumination of retail. We just wanted to ensure that with granting a fairly substantial increase in signage area, 500 feet is permitted pursuant to zoning, and they're increasing that to 3,000, that wouldn't go, increasingly beyond the illumination animation that we would expect for this type of retail and occupancy.
I guess what is the concern about illumination or animation? I mean, what's the background on why that's an issue?
I think it just from understanding that that 3,000 square feet could be quite large at this scale. 125th Street is a very animated corridor and has a lot of signage
that's sort
already.
of why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that there's just concern that we would be granting granting this waiver based on the proposal without actually seeing what that illumination could look like, where some increase in illumination could be good, but an entire animated billboard type signage could be too distracting. And I think we just wanted to ensure that what the commission would be approving in this letter, they have an accurate portrayal of what that would look like before approving it.
I guess in part I'm asking because, 125th Street, is known as an entertainment corridor, and that I would imagine we'd want to reinforce that. And so I'm unclear as to why the restriction really should apply on the street and why it's appropriate.
We thought it appropriate, again, because it's 6 times the amount of signage that otherwise would be allowed. And in discussions with ESD on this, we're not restricting them. This is what they were seeking, and we thought it appropriate to know what it was that we were signing off on. And so that is a description that the blade is not going to stick out further, and that we're not going to have the types of 6 times as many moving, blinking signs, which do lead to complaints in other neighborhoods, in other retail neighborhoods.
And just to clarify, we're not saying that they can't do illumination, and they are proposing that. It's a little hard to tell from this rendering, but these are illuminated signs, and we're just saying we are approving what we've seen and condition on that wouldn't go further.
I guess I'm just making the point that 125th Street is not like other neighborhoods, and that it has always sort of received special treatment, particularly as an entertainment corridor.
So it's,
Again, why we're fine with 6 times the permitted signage, because we see the multiplicity of uses, and also the museum, which is exactly consistent with that entertainment venue.
thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you. Do you have any information about timeframes when this project is going to commence? It's been in gestation for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't have that information on hand. I know that it was held up for a while, and they that's why there was the modification of July of this year. But I know now that they have this developer team solidified, they're wanting to move forward quickly.
Is this a zoning override?
The zoning override facet of it?
So do you mean the density and the
state?
This is basically the state doing it pursuant to a GPP rather than going through the city's zoning mechanisms.
Yeah.
We thought it appropriate. We have no objection here. It's a state-owned site, and it's something that we've long wanted to see developed. Other questions? Then I will ask for an assent by show of hands to send a letter, to send the comment letter to the ESD. Okay, thank you, Annie.
Item 6 is a non-ULIP review of a general project plan approval in the Bronx Community District 11. There was a revised letter in your package. Michael is here to take any questions that you may have.
This was presented at our prior meeting, so if there aren't questions, I will again ask for an assent by show of hands to send the letter to ESD. Okay, thank you.
Item 7 on the agenda, page 123, is a pre-hearing review of a citywide zoning text amendment. Our presenter is Stella Kim.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Today I'm back again to bring back our text amendment related to pop signage and amenities. This was presented and referred out back in May of this year. And as Ryan said, this is a pre-hearing item for tomorrow. So as a quick refresher, you're quite familiar with by now, POPS is an acronym for privately owned public spaces, both indoor and outdoor, in the densest areas of our city for public enjoyment, provided by property owners, primarily in exchange for bonus floor area. And today now we have over 550 of these at over 350 buildings, which equates to about half a Governor's Island of extra public space added through this incentive zoning tool. It was first introduced in 1961 in the zoning resolution in the form of these plazas and arcades, an example on the left, with minimal standards. And since the regulations and standards have greatly evolved to be approved upon to make these POPs more high quality, useful, and inviting to the public, which is something that the department continues to do today. And so signage really helps the public know about these spaces and they're open for all to use. But they only became required at plazas beginning in 1975 when the department did its first robust overhaul of the standards to make these plazas more usable and added amenities. So the spaces created prior to then are grandfathered under the original plaza standards and thus did not have to have a sign and went unidentified to passerbys for decades. But in 2017, the city adopted a local law that requires signage now at all POPs. And with this excitement for signage to be everywhere, we, with our partners, held this design competition for a new logo, as you've heard about throughout the year. And it was a huge success. And the winner is the one on the board here. Have a seat, chosen by Director Lago of the 3 finalists. And so the logo emphasizes the use of seating, as you see here. And so that's always been an important amenity in POPs. But again, our original standards are minimal and does not technically allow for seating in the older plazas and are not allowed in arcades either. So we'd like to unlock the potential for the seating in these spaces. So the text amendment before you is will essentially allow us to update the logo, ensure all POPs have the required signage, and allow for plazas and arcades to include public amenities in the form of movable tables and chairs where they're currently not permitted. The text was referred out to the community districts and boroughs where the plaza bonus is eligible or their special districts reference our standards. And as, again, was presented in May, we are amending, the department's amending its rules in conjunction with this to give specifics about the required signage and how to comply with this. So this was referred out to 22 community boards and 4 borough presidents and boards in May for 60 days. And we heard back from 8 community boards and 2 borough presidents, and overall received positive comments in support of this text amendment. We heard specific comments and concerns from Manhattan Community Boards 1, 5, and 6. The full details are in your packet, but just walking through some of the main points, Community Board 5 had concerns about allowing owners to put an unlimited number of movable tables and chairs. We think that this is adequately guarded for in the text as proposed because it has provisions about required clearances for circulation paths and around entrances. And for appropriate signage locations, the department will be reviewing signage plans to make sure that these signs are adequately provided in number and location on site. This, will account for looking at the sunken plazas and the elevated plazas and sites that have multiple POPs on site. So we'll be looking at that and making sure that's done appropriately. For Community Board 6's suggestion on movable planters, planters must be positioned strategically for growth and success and are often for soil volume reasons quite bulky. And so we think that this could possibly create circulation concerns in certain POPs. And this planter aspect would be out of scope with this current text. And for these compliance concerns raised by Community Board 5 and 6, first wanted to point out that our still fairly new POPs website and map are really important tools for the public and community groups to know about all the POPs in their area and to understand what's required at them, and then thus be able to raise any concerns they have. And we always encourage complaints and issues to be raised through 311, to be inspected, and we, as a department, work closely with DOB in providing data and clarifications on POPs requirements, so we will do our best to continue that. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
From the commission. Commissioner Burney.
When you roll out the new signage, who's actually physically doing that? Is that who actually does the work and how long will it take?
The owner will have to, hire, usually I think they would hire a contractor who would actually put up the signage. But prior to that, with the departmental rule amendment, we have a time frame and a process for the owner to submit a signage package to us, which we'll review. And once they have that approved by the department, then they'll have, I believe it's 90 days to put up the sign physically on site.
And are they required to do that? I mean, does the clock start ticking as soon as this is approved?
As soon as the rule, which we're going to move in conjunction with the text amendment, is approved, yes. But again, we have time frames. So for the POPs, there's some POPs out there that do have some form of signs already. You might recall I presented like a wild slide with different signs that exists around the city. They have 2 years to update their signs, so they have some time. The POPs that don't have any sign right now will have 6 months to submit their signage plan to us.
So by 2 years, all the signs will look like this,
Yes.
and it'll all be done in 2 years. Okay,
That's the goal.
that's
And any new POPs will go immediately to this. Commissioner Levin.
And once this becomes effective, will the city be notifying I mean, presumably the city knows about all the POPs and knows who's responsible for taking care of them. There'll be an affirmative communication with those responsible for the POPs that there are new rules in place and here's what you got to do?
Yes, I think this also came up back in May, I think by Commissioner Burney. We do have, our database, we have the owner's contact information, so we will send advance notice before it even goes effective as a heads up and be following up. So they'll get the notice.
Okay, and with clear information about what the new rules are and how they can go about complying?
Yes.
I'm kind of thinking, well, I guess maybe no one wants to raise the memory of the natural areas text amendment, but the design booklet that city planning put out about compliance with those new rules was really effective, I thought.
Great.
While it's the new logo that got the most attention, I have to stress the importance of getting rid of the prohibition on seating in the older era POPs. I think we are likely to see a lot of building owners eager to enliven these spaces. Okay, then we will see this at a public hearing on Wednesday. I don't think we'll need to make another presentation. We'll just go directly to testimony.
Thank you.
Item 8 is a city council modification to the Terrence Cardinal Cook zoning text amendment to revise the MIH option to eliminate option 2. Staff believes that this is within scope.
If I could have an assent by show of hands to send a letter saying just that to the city council. Thank you.
Item 9 is a city council modification to the Vernon Boulevard zoning text amendment to revise the MIA option to eliminate option 2. Staff believes that this also is within scope. I'm also noting that Commissioner Ramprasad is recused on this.
Okay, again, assent by show of hands to send the letter. Thank you.
Item 10 is a city council modification to 38th Street, 35th Avenue, the zoning text amendment to revise the MIH option to eliminate option 2. And again, Commissioner Ramprasad is recused on this item.
And yet again, an assent by show of hands. Done.
Okay. Just to note that there are only future votes. We we just discussed the upcoming hearing. The future votes on October 16th, staff have prepared reports for 515 Blake Avenue. Further questions on that? The Green Gems Garden Edition. Okay. 6003 8th Avenue rezoning. The St. Andrew Parish Hall enlargement. 5336 Arthur Kill Road, 208 Sprague Avenue, and 120 Whitlock Avenue. Those last 4 were actions in the Staten Island special districts. I don't see any further questions. Okay.
And I think that is it.
That concludes this
Thank you.
review session. The time is 2:08.